Municipal Board of Works order. We have roll call, Phyllis.
Craig Koshaw.
Here.
Bill Carba.
Here.
Ken Meyer.
Here. You're all emailed a copy of the minutes from November 4th. Do you have any revisions or corrections?
Motion to accept as email.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Chris and Jeremy. Jeremy's not here. Might as well wait. Kurt, Les, you guys might as well go. You want to discuss offering the position of the fire marshal / building inspector to a possible candidate. They've done interviews and they're to the point where they're ready to make an offer. If you want to tell us about it.
Yeah, actually we have two candidates that we boiled it down to. We have one that we prefer over the other, and basically we'd like to ask permission to make a job offer to one of them. His name's Anthony Lothridge. Currently, he's the assistant fire chief down in Geneva. Basically, as we stated before, we would bring him in at a certain level. We've allocated $50,000 a year for the salary between Les and myself. We want to bring him in at 45, and then as he progresses through his certifications, then we'll bump him up the pay level until he eventually maxes out at the full 50.
When would you anticipate him starting? When would you anticipate him starting?
Because we don't want to necessarily do a new salary ordinance. So I'd like to bring him in on December 23rd. That's when the new pay scale starts.
Okay, so he's not going to be here to train any this year.
Well, he'll be here December 23rd. He'll be here one
For a
day,
week.
off 2 days, and he'll be here 2 days. And Aaron's going to be gone from the 23rd on the end of the year, so I'll be here with him those days. But he'll get some training in.
How do you spell his last name?
Lothridge.
Lothridge. Okay.
Lothridge.
Okay.
And he does reside in Lynn Grove. Now he's a assistant fire chief in Geneva, but his full-time job right now he's with Hildy Roofing doing general labor.
So the assistant fire chief job is a part-time,
Yeah, volunteer.
like a volunteer thing.
But he's actually works general labor for Hildy Roofing.
So he has construction background, but he also has several certifications on the fire department side. We did get our contract, our employee contract around. Tim and Aaron got things worked out this week. We got it finalized yesterday. So he will be signing that before he starts.
And you said that he's very computer savvy?
Yeah, very IT savvy. He actually recommended some software to us, whether he got the job or not. He got online and did some homework.
Okay. Comments?
Nope, sounds like they thoroughly went through. And if they're satisfied, that I would think I would be satisfied that Les and Kurt went through, that guy.
Basically, what we'd like to do is we'd like to call, set up for a second interview, bring him in. I believe, Ken, you said you'd like to sit in on that interview. And then we'll basically offer him the job, go from there.
Have all the salary and insurance and all that together so that we can present his employee package.
We are going to offer him a vehicle, but he will not be able to take it home. He's every bit of 30 minutes out of town. The extra wear and tear on the vehicle and the gas wouldn't be efficient. So,
Does he have any issues with that commute every day? Is he good for that?
he must be, because he applied for the job. Basically what he will do is he'll report to the fire department every morning. We're going to keep his vehicle, which will be my old vehicle, at the fire department. So he'll report there every morning because we want him, he'll have to report there anyway to talk to the guys, anything new coming up. He can pick up his vehicle at that time, and the days that Tim Ballman are on, he will spend those days with Tim Ballman. When Tim's not on, then he'll be down here with me.
In the interim, I mean, that's because Kurt won't get his vehicle till in February, so probably the only day initially that he'd report to the station would be Tim's day. So I'll get him Tim's schedule so that he'd report to the fire station on Tim's weekday day, and then the other days. So we'll get his head in the books. That's the big challenge, is to get his head in, especially the building, electrical, so we can get him rolling on that. So as soon as we can arrange works for you and for him.
If he comes in, you do the interview, you make him the job offer, for one reason or another, he turns it down.
Did we have a second?
We have a second.
Do you want to tell us about him? Well, not, I mean, or are we just fine with whoever it might be?
It's up to you.
Is there any concern on either of their parts about
No,
this being disclosed?
The other would be Brad Rowe, who's employed by Mr. Planners. Probably a lot more actual hands-on construction than Tony, but he was pretty straightforward that carry a flip phone, and I really don't do, not that I couldn't learn it, but I really don't, technology's not my strong suit, and Kurt and I both felt like this combination of we got to share information continually with one another, with the fire department. We're looking to try and make that information more readily available when we get to a fire scene, so we just felt that we could teach, he could learn the building side, but speaking from experience, if you're not techie, you're not going to be techie. So we just felt like he would be but they were both, I mean, I think, should Tony not take it, Brad would be able to step in. The building construction stuff wouldn't be an issue with Brad. So.
Any other comments? If not, look for a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept their offer to Tony, and I guess we can follow on from there. Right?
I'll second.
A motion and a second to go ahead and do a second interview, and then if things work out through the second interview, make the job offer to Anthony Lothridge. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
We'll set that up at your
That's
schedule.
fine, yeah, that's fine. Okay, Kurt, while you're here, more discussion on Schermeyer?
Before we do that, since we're talking about the new hire, I was able to get my quote for the new pickup that I budgeted for next year. It is state bid, it's the cheapest one, so I only need to give one bid. You guys want to look at it? Basically, I'm looking for permission to have Gina Kelly's order this truck so it's here by February.
What kind of truck?
Chevy, 4-wheel drive.
Just the bottom line right here?
No, this is the bottom line right here.
What is that? How much?
27,515.
27 what?
515. And actually, he said he was trying to find a 2019 like the ones Jeremy just got, and I started looking at it. He said he was going to get a state bid on 2020 as well, and he said this one actually going to come a little bit cheaper.
This is a 2020.
This is a 2020.
It's good to me, guys.
Basically, I'm looking for permission to give him the go-ahead tomorrow to order the truck so it's here. He said I won't have it until probably February.
That's budgeted, right?
budgeted for that.
How much did you budget for that, remember?
Budgeted $30,000.
Okay.
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second for Kurt to go ahead and order a new truck. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Okay, 928 Schermeyer. We sent a letter to the homeowner who's incarcerated in, I believe it's Westfield Correctional Facility. Basically giving him 30 days to have something done to the property. And this is basically what the property looks like. We have not heard from him, and I believe the reason we haven't heard from him is, one, he's incarcerated. We did in the letter state that if he could have a representative of some sort contact us, but once again, we've heard nothing, and come this Friday, the 22nd, his time is up.
Are we assured that he actually received the letter?
We were told if we sent it to the correctional facility, they would make sure they had it. He got it. He received it. Now, I don't
Is that
know.
of concern?
Without talking to him, the people who were living there, Ketron's, Diane Ketron, the one day I was there and talked to her and her husband Paul, she kept saying that he gave her the house and the property, but tax records show that's not the case.
Well, unless it's deeded and recorded, he didn't give it to her.
Correct. So
Kind of like
I
the
don't
mobile
know
homes
on his
belonging to
end if
those
he's
people.
thinking
Yeah.
the same thing, that he gave it to her and it's not his problem. I don't know. Without being able to talk to the guy face to face or on the phone or something, I don't know. But this place is in shambles. It's a mess. And I'm being told that Diane Ketron is living with her mother in New Haven. I have a phone number for her. We've tried calling several times. She doesn't answer, and her voicemail is full. And I've been told by the police department that there is a warrant out for Paul Ketron, but he skipped town and he's somewhere in Ohio. So right now the house is vacant. So one, not only do we have a trash issue, but they've removed the siding from the house, exposing the old siding, which has holes in it, where they did blown insulation at one point in time, so now that's all subject to the weather. So before long, if something's not done with that, we're going to end up going after the house and getting an order to demolish. So we've got, first problem is the trash. The second problem that's going to follow later is going to be demolition. I don't know if Tim can reach out to the correctional facility.
We can try, but at this point, given the condition of the, out in the yard anyway, I think you clean it up.
Okay.
And at this point, then, with regard to the house, you may send a second notice. That time I would send a certified mail return receipt requested, so we have proof that it was delivered to the facility. Whether they deliver it to him, that's their problem. And because at some point you may have to go to court and you have to build a case or establish that you have the proper notice to them.
Okay. So at this point, I should clean it up? That'll
Yeah.
involve Jeremy's guys?
I mean, we're going to have to.
Time, and then also the dumpage fees. And
In which will assess...
So you're looking for a motion to
Clean it up?
clean it up? I'll make that motion to clean that up. I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? What about the house, Kurt? We got some time?
We have some time on the house. I mean, that house could sit like that for the next 4 or 5 years
Okay.
before it gets real bad. But there's no electricity to the house. That's why it was condemned to begin with. There was no electricity and no water. And after I condemned it, then all this happened. They started, there's tents in the backyard that they were living in. Yeah. And they hauled up, they decided to go junking, and they went across, I swear they went through town and pulled everything they could. And that's what they were going to do, was scrap to get the money. Well, he took the aluminum siding off the house and sold it for the money.
Okay, well, you got your motion and second, we voted. Unfortunately, Jeremy's guys are gonna have to go clean it up.
All right, thank you.
Yep. Melissa, do you have to go back upstairs?
Not at the moment.
Okay, well, I mean, did you want to get on Brielle thing? Through contract? Brielle Adams, that is our girl that's working at the Hive, hasn't been working because she didn't have anything to do. And she sent an email, she says, wanted to email you about amending my contract so I'm not required to work a minimum of 5 hours a week. I'm asking that this be amended because since there's no progress happening with the Hive, I do not have any work to maintain the 5 hours a week. Thank you for understanding and being willing to work with this. So I got her a copy of her contract, and it does say on the contract that she's supposed to work a minimum of 5 hours a week, a maximum of 50 hours a month. And right now she's not even able to do that. So do we need to amend the contract, or we just grant her the okay not to work just as needed right now?
How does it work? Let me look at it real quick.
I don't think in the contract it says it. It only says it in the Exhibit A.
It says that she's to be compensated on an hourly basis for work performed. So if she's not working, she shouldn't be turning in hours.
She's not now.
Okay. So, you know, I think you just communicate back to her and say the agreement is worded in such a way that she should only be turning in actual hours worked, and, you know,
Not to worry about
not to
getting the
worry
minimum.
about getting the minimum in if there's no work to be done.
Works for me.
So,
Melissa, will you communicate that to her? All right. Thank you. Chris and Jeremy? School crossing guards. After the school board meeting, after talking with Chris and Lenny and Tim and Jeremy on a conference call last week, it was pretty much decided that we needed to do a traffic study out there to alleviate the city of any liabilities. And so Jeremy was going to look into a traffic study from, what's the name of the company?
USI Consultants
USI Consultants.
out of Indianapolis.
And in the meantime, while we're waiting to come up with a firm price and a timeline to get that done, Chris and Lenny have offered up the police department to fill in as crossing guards in both the morning and afternoons. So what was the word from USI today, Jeremy? Can you clarify that?
What they did is yesterday they brought a on-call professional service agreement, and basically this would just put them as our on-call person for transportation, you know, needs and such. So that's, you know, part of this. I think it's a good idea that we have someone like them just at our disposal, if you will, for when reasons like this come up, you know, different things. But anyway, back to our original problem out there. I met with them, talked to them last week a little bit, and then met with them today, or yesterday, talked to them again today. What we feel is appropriate is to have a roadway safety audit done. And what they will do is they will go through, look at what we have. Road widths, average traffic counts, the pedestrian traffic, the lighting, the crosswalks, sidewalks, is there a need for crossing guards, or is there not a need for crossing guards? How many crossing guards? Look at speed limits. Do we need to lower the speed limits? Do we need to extend our school zones out? And basically just give us their understanding and their basically educated opinion on what is needed in that area. That area would include all of Monroe Street from 224 or Expert Transmission to Pickway Road. Pickway Road from Monroe Street to Decatur Dental, which would be 224. And then Old Street from East Monroe Street to the North Adams Drive. That is the area that we're looking at this point. The individual that I've been dealing with so far has been their business person, their marketing. I explained the scope to him. He acted like he understood the biggest part of what we were looking for. There is still some question and what we want, what our scope is. They shot us a really high price today to kind of cover themselves. We went back and forth over 2 different phone calls. We don't think it's going to be this involved. We were talking initially in that $5,000 to $10,000 range. They come back today just to get a number out there for tonight's meeting at a not to exceed $25,000. Well, I went back to them today and said, it's really not all that realistic. We talked about some things. I explained more to the engineer as to what we were wanting, and like he said, he goes, no, it's not even going to be close to that. So what they want to do is next Tuesday morning at 11 o'clock, they want to have basically a scoping meeting with me and Lenny and Chris to basically look at what we have, take a quick drive. So they are familiar with the area, and then actually give us a realistic, not to exceed price. Things that will help this project and help keep the cost down is that Chris and Lenny is willing to help with the crash data, which we've done before. And then just some little general, I can get with NERC and get the average ADTs and stuff for them. And then we also have the Myra Vision cameras. It's a traffic camera that, we can set up for them for a few days, record it, give them the information, then they can actually go have a really, really good look at the crossings and, where the volume of kids are coming from. Are they obeying the traffic laws? Are they crossing where they're supposed to be crossing and stuff? So we don't have the engineers out there for a week at a time. It's going to keep the cost a little bit more realistic. Not saying that we're going to do every part of that, but that's options that we talked about today. So to give you a good firm number, I won't be able to until after next Tuesday. But like Tim and I have talked, we feel very strongly that, this needs to happen just to get an outsider's view as to, hey, are we missing something? Sometimes, I don't care who you are, you get a little tunnel vision. You see the same thing all the time and you think, well, it's, one good. Sometimes you need an outsider just to kind of look at it. And it also takes the liability off of us because they're going to stamp it as professional engineers. What they will do in the end, after the survey is complete, they will give us a detailed summary and a detailed report of what they suggest, the changes, if they find anything that they feel that needs to be changed, then we will have to review it as a group. And it's not saying that every one of those things has to be done right away, but you know, they will have basically priority, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever, of what they feel should happen now and then over the course of a 3-year period.
Yeah. And I think, from my perspective, I think there's two things. One is, if you look at the uniform manual on uniform traffic control, if you're going to use crossing guards other than police officials themselves, you're supposed to do a study of this nature to determine the need for it. So I'm not comfortable going ahead and having, you know, adults trained by the police department put out there. And I think after Lenny talked to Columbus, which has been doing this for years, there's much more involved than just doing the training. So I really would encourage the board to consider the proposals that are being made. I think it's very important that we have that study done, and it will then make sure that we are in compliance with the uniform manual, and that's critical in terms of maintaining insulation from liability on the part of the city. Secondly, you know, we're all concerned about safety of children, and so this is reassurance to the general public that we've looked at this carefully. We've relied upon individuals that are trained to guide us on this, and we're going to do it in an orderly fashion. So I think that's the reason for the study. The second thing is with regard to the use of the police department personnel, again, because of the concerns that Lenny ran into in talking with Lisa Williams down in Columbus, the way they have it structured, everything is run through the police department. And you're talking about lining up a heck of a lot more volunteers than just 3 to 6 people. And then you have to train them, you have to equip them, you know, you have to schedule them. So there's a lot more, and then there's liability policies for workman comp, personal liability that the city carries on them. So by the time you factor in the cost of doing that, you're probably looking at the same cost of paying our police officers a little bit of overtime to do this. And I think that makes more sense to me, at least initially. You know, once we get this report, it may show that there's not a need for crosswalk guards. It may show that there's a better way to do it. So, you know, why would we go through the process of training and equipping people when that may not even be needed long term? So, having said that, there's costs involved in both of these, both with regard to the study and with regard to using our police force to do this service on a temporary basis. And I strongly encourage, and I talked to Ken about this, once we have some definite figures, and Chris put together information about what it would cost on an annual basis and on a periodic basis to use our own or police force to do this, we go to the school and we say, look, you say you want to partner with us, we're willing to provide these services, but this is the cost. What are you prepared to do to defray those? And in my opinion, it should be a 50-50 split at a minimum.
My recommendation, we have a plan to do something during the study.
I have officers in place to cover until January 1st.
Starting tomorrow. And
Yes.
I would encourage you to go ahead with that.
My recommendation was January 1st to give time. I'm confident that probably right after Thanksgiving or right before Thanksgiving they will start the study, if you guys choose to move that direction. And then that way it would give them time to complete the study, complete a report, and then the board here can get together, review the recommendations. You know, if we need to extend out a couple weeks, we can extend out, but that, I gave Chris that January 1 deadline just to kind of shoot for.
After what I've heard, I think that the right thing to do is cover our bases until we get the study done, do the study, and make a responsive decision.
And our budget's good as far as money-wise until the first year to pay people. We have 3 guys on comp time, so I'm making those guys work this for basically comp time until they build it out.
So I make
Once we know the actual figures for the study, then I'll contact the school board not just the superintendent, but the entire school board, and give them the figures for what we're going to have invested with the officers and what we're going to have invested with the study, and make a request to them to share in that equally. See where that goes.
I'll make a motion that we follow that proceedings.
I feel real comfortable with USI because they do this type of work. They don't do water and sewer and everything else. You know, they do a lot of asset management, a lot of studies like this. So, you know, you could find somebody that does it all, but you know, when it comes to something like this, you want someone that's focused on.
And I would, the other reason for the study is it may open up the possibility that if there are grants out there that could be utilized to fund some of these improvements, having that study done probably enhances our ability to go after those grants.
And also, my other request is to have to authorize me to sign an on-call agreement with them, so we could use them, you know, kind of as needed, on an as-needed basis.
I'll second Craig's initial motion, and then I'll make a motion to authorize you to sign that.
Take them one at a time.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second, so...
Yep, I'm sorry.
Yep, and then you can make the motion.
So all in favor for allowing Jeremy to proceed with the scope management meeting next Tuesday and the safety audit, and for our officers to serve as crossing guards. All in favor for that?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Go ahead, Bill.
Then I'll make that motion to give Jeremy the authority to sign the proper paperwork
For the on-call.
for the on-call.
And I'll second that.
Okay, a motion and a second for Jeremy to utilize USI
USI
Consultants as a go-to person whenever we need something like this done on an on-call basis. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Thanks, Chris. Jeremy, you can stay there.
Okay.
You got a change order that I think we approved, but what did you tell me about for custom net backstops?
Yeah, on custom net backstops, last meeting we discussed having them go ahead and put the bases in and the foul poles. I don't have that total right in front of me, but I think it's like 24 something.
22,276.42.
Yeah, and that will come out of the project total. You guys went ahead and authorized us to do that. I would just like to authorize Ken to sign that change order.
Okay, this is, well, Jeremy brought this up at the last meeting. It's about getting the foul poles from them, which he found out was just as cheaper than what we could have had them made locally for the bases, the home plate, and the pitching rubbers, to get all that ordered so that we stay ahead of the game. And like Phyllis said, it's $22,276.42.
Foul pole bases and what, Ken? I'm sorry.
Foul poles, bases, home plate, pitching rubbers, plus all the anchors to which would be set in concrete.
I'll make a motion to give the mayor authority to sign that.
Before we vote on that, Jeremy, it says bases, home plate, pitching rubbers. Make 36 base anchors in concrete. Install 36 base anchors, 6 home plates, 6 pitching rubbers. So this pitching rubbers is something that can be moved back and forth. Okay. All right, go ahead.
Yep.
What about like warm-up?
Pitching mounds for the warm-up.
No, we haven't discussed that at this point.
For the bullpens.
For the bullpens, until we get more of the bullpens and stuff pretty well set. I was just going to get the bases and the home plate and the rubbers and stuff put in. There's still going to be a lot of tracking around in those areas, so I want to wait until we get a little closer to spring, get everything touched back up, and then address that.
Okay. Bill, you made a motion
I said
to...
that give the authority to sign.
Okay.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Okay.
you want to review this agreement.
Yeah, I'll take a quick look at it.
You don't have to get back to me tonight. It's nothing that I got to have done right away.
Kevin?
Okay, as you all are aware,
Limited time only.
the last month and a half, since we lost our meter reader, some of the issues that we've been going through with that. Jeremy and Terry have been nice enough to lend me a few people to temporarily fill that position. Ryan from the water department and Susie from the wastewater department. Along with myself, I've been going out and reading meters for the last month and a half. We've made it through one cycle of billing so far, so we should have accurate readings moving forward on the meters that we can read. Currently, we have 1,500 manual read meters. Over the last month or so, since going out and reading them, this is our stack of meters that cannot be read, that are broken. You can't read the numbers on them, you can't find them, you can't get to them. Over 500 of the 1,500 are unreadable. We have 3,000 meters that you read by drive-by. That takes roughly an hour a week. The 1,500 meters is what takes up the majority of the time. And like I said, of that 500, we can't even get readings on. I spoke to Jeremy. We've talked about a meter change-out program over the winter months while public works employees are slow. And we've kind of both come to the understanding that this needs to be a priority, as both the water and wastewater departments are funded from these meters. Currently, we only change out roughly 15 to 20 meters a week. Our service rep has many other duties that he does, shut water on and off, different things, so that's all we are able to do right now. Jeremy has offered that if I get the meters, schedule the appointments, he'll give me guys to swap meters out this winter, like I said, as they're slower in the winter months. If he is able to get me one guy, we could change up 50 plus meters a week. Two guys, 75. If we get three guys, we could change over 100 meters in a week. Doing that within 3 months, we could possibly eliminate all 1,500 of these manual reads, which would essentially eliminate the meter reader position. That would in turn save the city roughly $70,000 a year. So that position would be basically boiled down to an hour a week. If we get everything to a radio read, like I said, it takes an hour a week to go out, drive out, pick up the 100, 200, whatever's in that route, whatever's in that cycle. Normally 10 minutes. Some cycles take 45, so I just said an hour a week. Like I said, that's my goal, to eliminate that position. If you look at the sheet I gave you, I've already taken advantage of the first promo that's on here, the AMR promo. A couple weeks ago, after we're getting into some of these issues, I purchased 250 meters. And with that, it includes new reading software. It's a new style meter that we're looking to get through the same company. So that includes software, an antenna, and a reader that you use to drive by around and read. What I am requesting or proposing tonight is that we take advantage of this second promo, where you purchase 1,200 meters, and what they do for that is they throw in a base station, which what that does, that would go here on City Hall, not right away, but eventually we'll be able to read all those meters from City Hall. We would not need to go out at all to read any meters. The utility clerks could hit a button and read every meter that they need to. It'll be years till we get the whole city like that, but we'd be able to knock out 1,500 that way if we get those installed. So 1,200 meters is a lot of meters, which equates to a lot of money. It'd be roughly $300,000 to purchase these 1,200 meters.
$300,000.
Correct.
It's a pretty good sale for somebody.
150,000, I'll get to that. 150,000 coming from the water and 150,000 coming from the sewer. Our operating funds are healthy enough now that I feel comfortable. I contacted Crow, our financial advisor. They feel comfortable with that, with our bond issue coming up, that there shouldn't be any issues with spending that sort of capital expense. I realize this is a very bold plan, but like I said, if we continue what we're doing now, changing 15 to 20 meters a week, it would take over 6 years to get the city to all radios. So that would in turn, the people I have now helping me is only temporary. I would have to hire for that position. And like I said, if we can eliminate that, it'd be $70,000 a year. These meters would be paid for in less than, or just about 4 years.
How long do they last?
The new meters are warranted for 15 years. So they should last at least 15 years.
So you have something here that reads it?
Yes.
Can you add on as
Yes.
technology everywhere?
Yes. What would essentially happen over time is we have a base station here, and we put repeaters on each of the water towers, and that would pick up the entire town. Like I said, I'm not looking to do that now.
But it's got that capability.
It has that capability. And then that would also, like I said, the manual reading is 98% of the time the meter reading. Right now it's roughly, I was hoping to be about a 20-hour-a-week job. It's taking us about 30. And that's because we have 3 of us learning the position and don't know where the meters are for one. The best route to go to read them to be in a more efficient manner. Once that happens, I feel it's 20 hours a week, but I would like to eliminate that position altogether. So that is my request. To be transparent, we use master meters. Ferguson is the Indiana master meter rep. Our Ferguson rep right now is Dan Rick. So he would, in turn, get commission off of that sale. I don't know what the commission would be offhand, but I just wanted to be transparent with that. I know the optics do not look the best as far as that goes. You got an incoming mayor making a sale like that. But with the situation that we have right now, like I said, here's over 500 meters that we can't read.
On this paper, it's got a red stamp on it that says special promotion for a limited time only.
Yep.
That's pretty cool. You're going to do $300,000 of business, and you don't think they wouldn't give us that any time?
I'm not saying they wouldn't. They had this promotion last year as well. But my goal is to get these, it's a 5 to 6 week lead time to get these meters. If I order them tomorrow, we'd have them by the end of the year. We would have January, February, March, as long as Jeremy's able to get me guys to get these meters in. If we wait, let's say, till the beginning of the year, we're looking at late February to get the meters. We missed out on the 3 months of slow time to utilize guys to install the meters. With that savings of $65,000, just to be upfront with you, if we don't go through with this, I'm still planning on changing out a ton of meters this winter.
How many?
A ton. As many as I can.
Yeah.
I would like to still get all those changed out. But I feel if we are going to make the attempt to change out this many meters, we might as well take advantage of the $65,000 base station that they would give us for free.
You familiar with this loyalty trade-in?
Yes. And what that equates to is, currently we use 3G meters, which are the radio reads. If you replace one of those meters and send it in, they give you $50 off per meter that you order of these new electric.
Is that a limited time only?
I don't know. No, that's been going on for years as well.
Okay.
The thing with that, the majority that we're replacing won't be those 3G meters. We do have some of those that need replaced. The meters that we're replacing are the manual read-o-matics, what you call them. There's 7, 8 different brands of meters.
And we don't even know how accurate they are. Is that fair?
And like I said, this is the first month.
Yeah.
We're now starting our second cycle,
Right.
getting these readings, and we're fighting meters that have the same reading as the month before. So those meters do not work as well. And we're finding anywhere from 5 to 10 to 15 of those per route, and we have 24 routes. So I wouldn't be surprised if we find another 200 plus that aren't working.
So we're not billing enough, likely.
would be my best estimation that we have been underbilling for.
What do you recommend, Kevin?
I recommend that we go ahead and try to get the 1,200 meters now, so that way, like I said, I have 250 coming. They should be here, not next week, the week after. That would get us, if we're able to go full force with this plan like I want to, that would get us through December. If we can get the guys to get them in and get them scheduled.
I make a motion that we deny that request. Something that the future mayor can take up once he's not an employee and a commissioned sales rep with this company. It's a motion on the table.
I think with the time constraints and the ability to have Jeremy's people help get this done,
Which would be able to do after.
I understand that, but I guess my thoughts are, Kevin has spotted this and we've saw it, and we have got a real problem here. I think the quicker we eliminate that problem, the better off we are.
And even if it comes to a point where we do have to hire somebody, I would rather not. Like I said, that would save $70,000 a year in benefits and salary. I think we still need to make a very strong effort to get these changed out.
Any opinions, Steve?
Well, I think from what I can tell, there wouldn't be a conflict unless Dan receives remuneration after the first year. He would have to file a conflict of interest disclosure statement. I did contact State Board of Accounts to see if they had any guidance or input or suggestions. I've not heard back from them. So typically they rely on my opinion. So there's not a direct conflict. As Kevin indicated, it doesn't look good. So it doesn't look good because you got an incoming mayor that's going to benefit from a purchase. But I also would say that Kevin's making the recommendation and he's laid out the reasons for it. So it's the Board of Works' decision whether you want to move forward with accepting the recommendation, authorizing it, or whether you are concerned about the optics and would prefer to delay this until after the first of the year, as the mayor has made a motion to do.
Well, it doesn't look like I'm going to get a second, so that motion dies.
And like I said, either way, I'm planning on ordering a bunch of meters. I just feel that if we're going to do that anyways, we should get the free base station and start utilizing that as soon as possible. It'll be, I would say, a year till we start using that system as a reading system. Like I said, you have to put repeaters over town too. But at least like 65,000, 65,000. And with the savings of 70,000 for the salary, plus getting accurate readings, I feel the revenue that coming in from those, like I said, 4 years would pay for it. I feel we'd be closer to 2 or 3.
Last question.
Please.
So, I think it sounds like a fantastic plan to me. If the concern is this conflict of interest, then one, can we first of all see if this deal would be available to us after the first of the year?
I'm sure it will be because of the amount of, it was available last year as well.
I mean,
So this isn't really a special promoted for limited time only?
That's what I was saying. But yeah.
so that would be question one, just, to avoid, and I think, I don't know, I guess the other question is, has anybody had a conversation with Dan about this? Like, would...
I have, and just to be clear too, this arose from a conversation between me and Jeremy that, I was talking to him about wanting to get meters changed out, and with that conversation, said, you get the meters, I'll give you the guys. So then that's when I started looking at what's the biggest bang for our buck. We can do it 250 at a time, keep doing that each month, ordering those. But like I said, if we're going to really push and try to get all these changed out, we're gonna buy 1,200 meters, and we're not gonna get the base station.
I guess I'm just saying, like, I think he probably would have a concern as well. If he's concerned about whether this looks bad as optics for him. So I think that's a fair question for him.
And that's what, like I said, that's why I would want to leave that out there. You could also say too, if, say in January, we decide to go through with this, there's some optics there as well that his former company, that we're going to do a big purchase as soon as he comes on board. So it's all in how you look at it and how you explain it and how you justify it. So
How many dollars of business did we do with Ferguson last year? You got any idea?
roughly 200,000, and we're right about 200,000 so far this year.
You can't buy the water meters from anybody else.
Not in Indiana. Ferguson's the master meter rep in Indiana.
You can't change water meters.
No, you're kind of handcuffed to your meter company. Pretty much every community is that way. Currently, we have probably 7, 8 different kinds of meters in our system. We're trying to get away from that because we can go to one system, we have one reader, it reads everything rather than having to have multiple readers, multiple systems to read what we're doing.
I had a discussion with Dan on this because it was a question that came forward. I asked him, I said, what do you have to gain in this situation? He said, about $1,200 over the next year. To me, if this is something that you and talk with Jeremy about, completely being transparent, what he shared with me, that to me that's not that big of a deal, in my opinion, and that I would go forward with it. $65,000 on a tower and an opportunity to have that, if it's not available in the future, would be a risk that we don't want to take as a Board of Works, in my opinion. So, with that said, I would make a motion that we either do this now, or we table it for 2 weeks, and if there's any other information that can come in front of you. But I don't want to delay you because I think that we owe it to the people that are paying our water bills to give them a fair water bill.
Yes.
The timing of it just seems so...
It is.
If it's an issue of transparency, then if we need 2 weeks, Kevin, and you recommend that we do that, I don't know what your timetable is with the people that are actually going to install these meters. I don't want to delay this because I think this is a very important thing to our customers with the trust. If I'm worried about a political situation, he shared it with me, and I believe that.
It's an odd situation. You don't see this normally, where a vendor would be coming in. It's an odd situation, and it's a big, bold plan to throw on your laps and say, can I have a decision now? But just so you know, so like I said, it's a 5 to 6 week lead time. So tomorrow I'm planning on ordering meters because to get them in by the end of the year, I need 5 to 6 weeks. So I'm either going to order 250 tomorrow or 1,200.
Right.
Like I said, if we don't do the 1,200, I'm just going to do 250 at a time.
And lose the opportunity to have the tower.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
That's my goal. And this all falls on.
Is this all a Board of Works decision?
Is it,
It's a Board of Works decision.
65,000. Install is 65,000.
and just because we're buying all these at one time, they're going to throw in a $65,000 item.
That's to get you going with this. Because, like I said, we use the 3G.
I don't know a business where they can throw in a $65,000 item. Doesn't make sense. Anybody in here know where you can just throw in $65,000?
I don't have the actual cost of that, but with install, I've seen the breakdown. It's 64 or whatever.
But they're going to install this. If we order $300,000 worth all at one time, they're going to throw in an extra $65,000 worth and install it.
And like I said, you're basically handcuffed to them. So they're going to make money from you on you going forward.
It's not free. I mean, you're paying for it. It's just
Oh,
like
yeah.
Lowe's that installs carpet for installation for free. It's not free. You're just paying more for it.
but, I mean, it is what it is. But you're right, there is an optic either way. If we buy now from Dan, if Dan wants his mayor, came directly from his company, I mean, let's go back several years ago. I still hear all the time, I can't believe the city purchased Baker and Schultz property as soon as Mayor Schultz became mayor. Well, I think it's one of the best purchases we've made, because it was available ground, we really needed it. It houses all our equipment indoors, but to some in the public, that optic was not good. So, this is just one of those situations that
But not situation.
it looks that way either way. Yet we are already tied to Ferguson. That's who sells it. That's who we're going to buy it from. It's just how we're going to buy it.
So,
The board works decision.
okay, so Craig, did you make a motion or not? Because initially I thought you were making a motion and you said something about tabling it, so...
Well, I'm asking your opinion. If you're going to buy the equipment and you're going to buy that equipment, do you want 2 weeks or you want to buy it now?
I would recommend that we do it now.
Okay.
Just because,
Then I'll make a motion
I can
that we
get 'em in.
purchase this equipment, utilize our employees to install it, and get this started.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. Thank you.
thank you.
Moving on. Tim, you had some issues
On
Jackson Street, some other things you
Yeah,
wanted to talk
a couple
about?
of things on the, there's two things. One is on Jackson Street, and this is tied to the River Greenway project. River Greenway, we have to have this restrictive covenant that says the properties that are involved in the Greenway Trail are subject to a DNR restrictive covenant. It says you can only use the property for park-related purposes. The Riverside Center was the trailhead for that. So we're trying to get a legal description so I can add that restrictive covenant to that property. Brent Miller's doing the survey. He called or emailed me last week and said, can you tell me where the right-of-way of Jackson Street is? Well, in reviewing the records for a 10-year period from 1965 to 1975, we can't find anything where the right-of-way was ever established. In '69, the bridge was there was an agreement between the county, the state, and the city for the Jackson Street Bridge. At the time, apparently, the city owned the property where Jackson Street is now located. So I don't know if they just constructed the bridge, the road, but we need to establish a right-of-way for Jackson Street. So if we can't find anything, I've called Tim Barkey, asked him to check his records to see if there's anything in the county's records that would show this. If they don't have it, then the only thing I know to do is have Brett shoot a line that we can establish a right-of-way for so many feet either side of that line that basically tracks where Jackson Street is now and dedicate it.
Was that city limits at the time? I mean, was that within city limits?
The city owned the property where Riverside is and where the old dump was on the other side, and then it kind of snaked it way down to 224. So that's what I think happened. Somebody just dropped the ball and didn't record a right-of-way for it. So
I'm sure they were city limits then.
yeah. So I think we have to do something to establish that. And then that way he can finish up the survey and I can get this done on the River Greenway, because that's the last thing that I'm working on or waiting for in order to finish that up.
Right.
So, having said that, that then brings me to Hannah Nutman, and I really think that we need to do something similar at Hannah Nutman because we've got streets out there that have never been actually dedicated. So I think what I would suggest is that Brett's already done a lot of the survey work, have him put together a plat using that field work so that we can establish where the streets are, because there has been a change to the one that winds over to Washington Street, because that's a slightly different location than what it was previously. We've never established the street right-of-way behind McKean's and the Quick Lube property there. We need to do that as well. So if you're okay, I'd like approval to do whatever we have to on Jackson Street, and also have Brett work on getting this put together so that we can establish a plat that shows the dedication and location of the streets at Hannah and Ubman. I think that's real important. Otherwise, you know, we don't really have any way to enforce speed limits, stop signs. You know, we need to do that. So that would be my advice, so that 30 years from now, somebody doesn't look at Hannah and Ubman and wonder, how did we do this?
What did these crazy guys do?
Yeah, so I would strongly encourage that we go forward with that, and I'll talk to Brett. It probably will come up at the second meeting in December in order to get that done, but because we're probably going to have to run this through the Plan Commission first, and then that would come to council later that day.
I'll make a motion to give Tim the authority to go forward with that.
Second. Motion on the floor and second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Anything else, Tim?
I think that should do it.
Jeremy? You want to get okay to sign an agreement with NDOT for unofficial detour of a bridge project?
Yes. Right now, they're looking at about April of 2020. They're going to do bridge deck repairs on the 224 bridge at Pickway, there at Decatur Dental. NDOT will use their standard truck detour 101, you know, around either direction, whether they go north or south. When you have a project like this, they mark basically an unofficial detour, basically for cars that would normally, local traffic that would normally be using 224 to access. What they do is we come up with an agreement for an unofficial detour. NDOT comes in, they video the roadway and such, and then if we do an inspection, then we do a drive-by with them before, during, and after, and then they pay for any damage that's done to the roadway. They do, you know, have a contractor come in and do all that work. What is probably the most logical unofficial detour would be East Monroe Street. It would primarily be April, May, and this is all weather dependent, probably a little bit in June is what you're thinking on a time frame, probably 3 and 4 month time frame. Like I said, the truck traffic should not be there because they're using 101 north and south. We know how that works out though.
Yeah.
So
Been there before.
if we don't sign it, they're not going to give us anything if something gets tore up. So it's most logical for us to go ahead and sign that. So if trucks do get on East Monroe Street, since it's been freshly paved, improvements been done to it, that NDOT will take care of the cost.
Thank you.
So,
Yeah, that's kind of a no-brainer.
you know, any damage, whether they run over stop signs,
Yeah.
you know, we take care of all that, and then
But it'll happen.
reimburse.
So you're looking for an okay to sign this agreement?
Correct.
Make a motion to give you permission to sign that agreement.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Jeremy,
I believe
also
that
wanted
calls
to...
for Board of Works and you, if you look on that paper.
You wanted to get permission to start a hiring process for a public works position?
Yes, and 2020, we have budgeted for a sanitation worker and a public works employee for kind of shared through the utilities and the Hannah Nutman project. I would like to start the process sometime in December. Obviously, the person would not start work until January, you know, after the first of the year. Being that it's a lengthy process, advertising it internally and externally, and then, you know, 2-week notices and stuff, I just like permission to get that get the jobs established, and get it out for advertisement.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And you also want permission to start a bid process for equipment for 2020.
Correct. In 2020, we are looking to replace a garbage truck. I'm starting the process of figuring out exactly what we need, what we want. When that is determined, sometime toward the latter part of December, I would like to get the specs and stuff together and come back for permission to get that bid. Also, in 20, Kevin and I and Don's been talking about upgrading our mini excavator. The one we have now, we've had probably 5 or 6 years, and it's getting a lot of age on it. It is budgeted for 20. We're not real sure exactly what we want and what size at this point. Also included in that would be a trailer to haul it on. So I'd like permission to start both of those processes. From what I'm finding so far, depending on what we get, it's more likely going to be a source wall purchase or through a state bid purchase on both buildings.
Is that for Public Works, Jeremy?
Yes. Yeah.
I'll make a motion to give Jeremy permission to go forward with the bidding process.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I have nothing else. Look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned.